Um, so we should be streaming now to all of our channels. We're going to double check. It's always a good thing. So in essence, this is our pregame show, right? This is like the behind the scenes. We're in the green room, but we don't have a green room.
It's more like a blue room for me.
We're not worried about the Team USA logo in this one.
Oh, my bad. Oops.
No, we're not.
Okay, good.
We're not worried at all.
These are just literally some of the most comfortable shirts I own, so they get put in the rotation quite often.
That's great. Yeah, I can't wait for Kyra to see this stuff, though. So we have that. Here's Kyra here. Let's bring her in. There's like a little bit of a delay between the click and the coming on. Let's see, where'd she go? So what have you been up to, David? How things going?
I've had a great break. Funny enough, I've gotten into some new hobbies, and one of them being bowling for some reason. I've always bowled as a kid and like had fun with it, but I was recently like, I wonder, it would be a lot of fun to get my own bowling ball and maybe get a lesson or two. And man, we've dove deep from that train. But it's been a lot of fun.
That's great.
Good long break. The first one I've had in like half a decade at this point.
Really? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were talking to Yule yesterday, and he was saying kind of the same thing. He's like, my first vacation in years. He's like, I've only had like 3 vacations in my life. So
I think I've only had 2. It was a part of the family, but whenever I go with like Team USA or USA Swimming to meets, like Duel in the Pool was a swim meet, but it was also a vacation because we got to explore all of Australia. Like it was a lot of fun. Kind of similar with Worlds as well out that way. Yeah, things were a little bit more kind of chill and relaxed, so we were able to kind of explore, get really good food in Australia, really good food.
Really.
And just kind of explore there and kind of see what had to offer and people, and yeah, it was good. But actual like family vacations, I've been to Portugal, and that's about it. I mean, if you count Disneyland.
This is just training.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Let's see, I'm going to tell Kyra I'm trying to bring her on.
Zoom malfunction.
As Devin would say about this time, these are just little glitches that we tend to have here and there. Like for some reason, I'm trying to call her onto stage, and it's not.
There's always some form of technical difficulty with this day and age. I've always had issues. Yeah.
As good as tech is, it's still stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna send her different. Let's see if that works. So tomorrow, who am I recording tomorrow? Tomorrow I'm recording Mackenzie Long, the sprinter, and then so I have Donald Scott, the triple jumper. Do you know Donald?
No, I don't recognize the name, but
he's a 2-time Olympian. I think he medaled last time. He's in the triple jump. So it's like, which is a crazy sport. That's another one of those like, man, I don't know if I could do. There's Kyra.
Hi, I forgot to press ask to join. I just had it just sitting up so I could like hear y'all, but like I forgot to press the button. I'm just like, I'm here.
Did you? So when I click it, so here comes Gabby. So let me see when I click it, because I'm trying to just bring you right on stage. There's a button on my side. It just tries to bring you on. So I don't know.
No, it was a me thing. I had clicked it to start it, and then it was another step that I had to do that I just didn't press the button. That's just me.
Hey, and there's Gabby too. We did it. We got off of
Gabby.
Ron. So here's, I sent everybody an outline. David, Kyra, Gabby. We'll get into our intros in a second, but I wanted to surprise Kyra with a cold open to the show. So Quincy, if you have those videos, let's just start with the Kyra 1 video, and we'll go from there. This will be entertaining, I think. Who is
childish? Where did you guys find me?
Quincy, yeah, bring up the next one, and I want David to break this next one down a little bit, because I think
break it down.
Look at this! She looks amazing.
Where did you find these?
Man, that's a pretty good fly.
You sent these to us 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Oh my god! I'm like,
I have 2 more fun ones though. Just Quincy, just bring them up real quick. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How cute is that?
I'm terrified. I was tired. That's just pure being tired.
So this is our cold open to the show. So Gabby, fun fact: did you know that Kyra, when she was younger, was a competitive swimmer?
I did not.
Yeah, I swam all the way, I think, up until my senior year of high school, and I decided, you know what, I don't want to do it no more.
Oh wow.
I was exhausted. I was tired of my hair being wet. It was very childish. The reason there was no
it's a valid
real reason. Yeah,
the story's here too.
Let's do some intros. We'll go around the horn. So I'm Bob Siosik, founder of World's Greatest. I'm gonna toss it to Kyra, and then we'll just go to Gabby and to David.
Okay, I am Kyra Jefferson, former professional sprinter, now collegiate coach.
I am Gabby Cunningham, Nike athlete and 2021 Tokyo Olympian.
I'm David Curtis. I'm current professional swimmer and part of a couple of Team USA teams, including the Pan American team.
That's awesome. This is going to be a fun show because this is a very interesting group. Already, Gabby has told me earlier today, she's like, oh, ironically, I'm watching swimming right now. So I want to get right into it, Gabby. So what were you watching? Why were you watching swimming today? Were you just kind of doing some homework on David, or what's going on?
So actually, I've always watched swimming as part of the Olympics. But this time I feel like is the one time I guess the last time I was competing and we didn't get to watch live. But this time I actually kind of felt like I knew more of what was going on. And so I was just watching a lot of the finals and semifinals today.
Kyra, where do you think we should go with the show now? What are your thoughts?
So since we have David, I feel like we can kind of go towards asking some questions about swimming that we may, the general public may not understand, what's going on with the Olympics right now.
Love it.
I know one of the questions I figured it out, but initially I was kind of not sure. How do you qualify for the finals in swimming as opposed to the other sports that we all kind of are more familiar with, like track?
So when it comes to specifically Olympic sports, there's prelims, semis, and then finals. There's the open pool of athletes that compete for a semis final spot, and there's usually only 16 spots available for that. So you're fighting for top 16. And then for the finals, it's top 8. So it kind of goes from the big pool, whittles it down to the 16, and then whittles it down to the final 8, which is where the medals are given out, or the places are given out technically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was watching and they were like Ryan Murphy, he can't get fourth, he can't get fifth, and I'm like, so is it top 3? Is it how does it work? And then I had to actually go dig deep. I did it before the show too, Bob. I really wanted to know.
so
yeah,
real knowledge. Yeah,
they could have been potentially talking about lane placement because the fastest person goes in the middle of the pool, and it kind of whittles out each lane next to that. So lane 5 is usually second place, lane 3 is third. It kind of goes out that way. So
Mm.
I bet they were trying to talk about like lane placement, trying to make sure he gets in the middle of the pool because the water tends to be the freshest in the middle of the pool, the fastest, since that's where the fastest people are. So if you're in an outside lane, sometimes you can get caught in a wake and it can kind of kill you. But yeah, I'm sure they were trying to get him in the middle of the pool because Ryan Murphy does perform whenever you put him in the spotlight in the middle, and that's what he did for the was it bronze in the 100 backstroke.
Isn't that crazy though? So this is the one thing I learned, you guys, when we shot with David. It was very. You think you know swimming because it's like kind of grew up swimming a little bit, right? I can swim a little, but it's so. I was so amazed. Like David, you said early on, like I don't know how it came up in a conversation, but you're like, the water doesn't want you there. And it was like, what? What are you talking about? So can you talk about that a little bit? This idea of the water is kind of an opponent.
Yeah, I mean, the water is something that just sits there, right? Like you could leave a pool filled and walk away from it, and it's going to be the same body of water that when you first entered it. That's what makes it tough, is because it's not necessarily like something that's going to assist you going through the water. You kind of have to maneuver around it or work with it, or in some cases fight it in order to get the achieved goal down, which is the fastest time possible. And kind of navigating the way that you work best through the water, because it's different for everybody. Some people float, some people sink, some people are heavier like me, some people are lighter. It's a different experience for everyone, but you really kind of have to really get to the nitty gritty and breaking down of your technique, how it shapes the water, how you shape the water, how you interact with it, and then what type of drag coefficients you have, what type of resistance that you encounter while you're swimming. It gets really nitty gritty really, really fast once you start to really think about it, because at the end of the day, like I said, I believe it was like the water's going to fight you or something like that. And the greatest athletes are the ones that know how to master that.
Hold on to questions for a second. So, Gabby, if you want to think of a question. Hey, Quincy, could you play? So, Quincy's our producer, dropping in all the videos. Could you play the Science of Swimming promo? Because this will get us kind of hyped up a little bit, and then maybe some of the things you're talking about, David. By the way, we control it.
If you think about what is the toughest opponent in swimming, it's probably the water.
The water is not an entity that wants to allow you to swim through it peacefully. You have to fight it. The water's been sitting there waiting for you to come and telling you,
The 50-meter swimming event is cool because it is a sprint. It's an all-out sprint.
I call it the perfectionist race. 18 cycles of perfected replication.
This is 20 or 21 seconds.
One singular lap in a 50-meter pool, and that is it.
Very unique demands and very unique athletes that perform in this event.
We swim, we ride, till we die.
This is the Science of Swimming with David Curtis.
That's going to get us a little hyped. Gabby, do you want to go next with the question? Because I got some thoughts, but I want you guys to
I actually do have a question because I did watch the science video on it, and I noticed one thing that you were talking about. Well, I guess I'm kind of interested in two things. One is off of the block. That kind of drew my attention because I feel like, we come out of blocks, you guys come off of a block. So like kind of comparing like what you guys are thinking and what the science of that is in comparison to like how we come out of our blocks. And then also there was a part in there where you said that it got to about like 35 meters. And at that point, you're kind of like panicking because you're like running out of breath. I know this year I did a lot of swimming workouts like to combat when I was on the track. And so one thing that I was always curious about is there like a specific like breath pattern that you guys take to make sure that you're like maximizing the amount of oxygen you have when you're swimming?
I'll start with the block question, and I want to draw there are some similarities to track, but there's also a lot of differences. One of the biggest factors that you have to focus on when diving off the block is the impact with the water. When you're going off your block, there's nothing really you're interacting with besides your own body and the track below you. I mean, the air can cause difficulty. I mean, if we're getting really nitty gritty like humidity or something like that, but the water is it's still. So usually, unless if some big pools have something that breaks the surface a little bit, gives you a little bit of surface tension break, so you know where it's at. But like you're going into that water with a whole lot of force and a whole lot of power. And there's three things that I focus on. Is one is the reaction time. I pride myself in having a really good reaction time. I'm pretty quick off the block. That's something that I've kind of worked on a lot since I was a kid. And I've always kind of had this fast twitch muscle and ADHD energy that kind of gets me going in that moment when I'm off that block. The second portion is how I get off the block. So the utilization of my legs, what type of power I'm putting through my feet and my toes, and then also how I get my arms up and on top into that streamline, so I can kind of have that almost like diagonal. Again, I think I referred to it as actually I'll go to step 3, which is the entry, and I referred to in the science video, the science swimming video. You're thinking of it almost like a little bowl. Like mine is roughly about this big, and my entire body from the fingertips, well, theoretically, my entire body line needs to fit through that small of a hole. The reason being, when you're entering the water, you want to try to carry as much velocity and as much speed as you can off of that block, since that is your most powerful position in the race, is right off the block. And trying to be as clean and as smooth on that entry as possible, trying to fit through that line as easily as you can. It bodes well to carrying that velocity through and up out of your breakout. In terms of breathing, you're not supposed to breathe in the 50 freestyle. I'm still working on that because of my asthma. I have some issues that prevent me from doing that safely. But I would say for 50 freestylers, a lot of what you're thinking of with the breath control and what you do to kind of control that happens 30 minutes before you even step up to the block, because you really have to regulate your oxygen intake. I mean, you're getting nervous, you're getting antsy. The second you start to hyperventilate, that can affect your race, not only because your blood pressure is higher, so you're going to need more. Your body's going to want more oxygen to help cool that off. You're also not intaking as much oxygen if you're hyperventilating. You really got to sit back, relax, and try to oxygenate yourself as much as you can. Open those lungs, because I mean, there's almost like a kind of a heady feeling, like you're almost lightheaded when you get all this oxygen in your head, and that's the point where I know that I'm doing it correctly, because I really need to completely be relaxed in my lungs while the rest of my body is tight. And that's kind of the art of it. Is you got to make sure that you're playing both sides of it. Make sure you're primed and ready to go to race, but your lungs and your muscles are relaxed enough so that you can get the air that you need to carry that throughout the entire race.
That's fascinating. Kyra, I mean, when David started talking when we first were shooting, and he's doing it again today, and it's like fascinating to me, the parallels between sprinting, hurdles, right, and swimming, specifically the 50-meter free. Talk a little bit about that on your end.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the 50 free, I feel like is the equivalent to the 100. Like obviously we breathe a little bit more, but I don't think in the 100 anyone is like cognizant of if they're breathing or not. Like that's the last thing that you're thinking about. And then like even like other events, like so I think I have wrote it down because I was not gonna remember all of these numbers, but I said like the 50 was like the 100 meters in track. I would say the 100 is more like a 200. If you're like more of a 60 runner, it could be like a 400. But I think with how it goes in the turns, it's more of a 200. And then anything like higher up, like the 200 IM and stuff like that, is more of a 400. But I think what stroke you do does also kind of dictate like how much energy you have to exert for it. Like for me, like when I was younger, I used to do the 200 IM and I used to do the 100 fly. And for me, the 200 IM was easier than the 100 fly because to me, butterfly is like an event that really requires a lot of my energy. I'm using like my body in a completely different way. And then in the 200 IM, I get to kind of switch and I have different types of, you know, functions that I'm doing with my legs. And so it kind of like makes it a lot easier. So I would say like for sure, I can see David not breathing. I can definitely see it because I'm trying to like in track. I don't know. Like people ask all the time, like, do you breathe when you run? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe. Like I probably do. Gabby, do you breathe in the hurdles?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah. It's never anything that I've been like cognizant of, but I would say the one thing that I'm starting to notice more, I guess the more years I've been hurdling at an elite level, is like I always used to say that when people like grunted over the hurdle, like are they doing that on purpose, like just as like a distraction, or is it a thing? And I've noticed more that like the more I push into the hurdle, sometimes it just like naturally is like a breath of air or grunt that you just let out. And so um, I feel like doing that over and over again, like for 100 meters, can sometimes exert a lot of energy. So, like, I try to control that part.
You know, one thing I wanted to make sure we told everybody. So Gabby is a 100-meter hurdler, right? And Kyra, you really specialized in the 200, didn't you,
Yeah,
for most of your
200
career?
meters for the most part.
Yeah,
I did the 400 sometimes too.
yeah. So that's why I thought bringing you guys together, I thought would be kind of a fascinating conversation. Um, David, talk a little bit more about the parallels that you see in track, specifically in sprinting and hurdling.
I don't know too much about hurdling. I like watching; it's very interesting. But the one thing that I can kind of draw a comparison to is I wouldn't necessarily say the total amount of exertion, but the exertion type. In 50 freestyle for sprinting, you're using all your muscles as hard as you can for a very short amount of time. So it's extremely high impact on joints, on muscles, on your mind. It's very high impact on your body because you're going all out for 21 seconds. I don't know the average time for 100-meter, but I'm sure it's basically the same thing. You're going all out, like you're 100% the entire way through, and I'm sure that's got to draw a lot of physical exertion. Simply being, you're just putting that 100% in for what's the average 100-meter time, or not average, but I guess
Um,
what you guys go.
for a woman nowadays, maybe like 10:9, 11:0 if you're like, you know, kind of transitioning out of college, and then for men, they're running like 9:7, 9:8. So,
Yeah, like that's a lot of speed and power and a bunch of different things that I probably couldn't explain super well in such a short amount of time. So I got to imagine that there's a comparison that can be drawn in terms of the distances being so fatiguing long term in terms of like the wear and tear and how it affects your body, you know.
Hey, David, there were so many interesting things that I saw in your training, and your coach is an interesting guy as well, super knowledgeable. Like I think like everybody's coaches, and now that Kyra's a coach, it's Kyra who's knowledgeable. The
I know a little something to be dangerous, just a
Yeah,
little bit.
exactly. So, Kyra and Gabby, does this surprise you? So it surprised me. So, big part of David's training was, well, you can explain the what you're doing in the weight room and going into the pool, but I did want to touch on when they put you in the pool and you were training for like speeds that you can't normally get, and they were actually pulling you in. Your coaches were pulling you in these short kind of sprints in the pool. I thought it was fascinating because the idea was we want him to be going faster than he ever can go, so he feels what it feels like to go fast. Am I getting that right, David?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Gabby and
similar to our 1080 machine. Like we have 1080, we do overspeed, and it kind of gets your body to go faster than you've ever gone, and then eventually it gets easier as you go, so you know that your body is capable of running those speeds.
so with that machine, there's no resistance to it, or
Um, you
how
can
does?
do both.
Oh,
The 1080 can have resistance if you're coming off the starting block. And it's the most of the time that I use it, Gabby. I don't know how often you guys use it, but
Hmm.
when we did use it, it was making you basically you were rolling. Like it was
Yeah.
making you go like super fast where your mechanics were like super important and just kind of
Hmm.
learning how to get your feet down underneath you. It's not supposed to feel natural. It's because it's faster than you would normally go. And then like it eventually just snaps off and you can just use that momentum, but your body starts over time learning like that my legs can go this speed, my arms can maintain this, this movement, being able to keep yourself in these positions while going at that speed so that it translates over when you're actually like running without it.
Yeah,
So
it's
I expect
it's
that.
It's kind of the same with swimming.
Yeah.
You're pulled in by it's like a bungee cord. It's a long bungee cord that the coaches will pull, and it jacks you to like really really fast speeds, to the point where you're like splitting the water into other lanes. Like it's that type of fast, but it's never really about like how hard you're going or how fast you're going. It's more about how you maintain the technique throughout that speed, because it's usually very short distances, 15 meters, 25 meters at absolute most. Um, and it's important for that in terms of maintaining technique that you would in a race, so that you're feeling that speed and you're doing the technique that you would in a race. So it's not like just foreign when you go all of a sudden all this crazy amount of speed off the block, you know?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if any two sports are similar, it's definitely track and swimming. And people don't really
Really?
understand how close. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of track athletes, especially at state, swim. Never the other way around, because swimmers usually don't have the energy or the mental energy to. I'm talking for myself as well. I don't want to run. It's hard. But I definitely see a lot of cross training from track athletes into swimming, and it's from what I've seen, it's extremely common, and mostly I would say it's beneficial, because I mean swimming is kind of good all around, whether you do it competitively or just for your health. And you know, it's good on the joints, it's good on your body. It's a pretty good thing to do for yourself.
Yeah, I got a question for all of you guys. I kind of thought of this one when we were shooting the interview with the doctor at HSS for Devin Allen's episode of Science of Hurdles, and the concept of you guys chasing fractions of seconds to so the difference between Devin's fourth place finish in Tokyo and first was, I think, 0.14. That was the difference between first and fourth, right? Winning a gold and nothing, um, not winning a medal, not nothing. The so I had the doctor. I gave her my phone and I said, "How fast can you click on and off can you beat 0.14?" And she couldn't. The fastest she could click on her phone to stop and start the clock was 0.15. That's what you
That's
guys are
insane.
doing for a living. Like, this is the thing that fascinates me. How, as um, professionals, as workers, like, this is your job, this is what you do. How do you chase fractions of a second for a living without driving yourself insane?
Um, I don't
Um,
really chase times. I think that's kind of where you go wrong.
Agreed.
But that's why you're judged by at the end, right? So,
No,
let's
really.
talk about that. I'm going to let you guys go with it then. This is the viewer versus the professional.
I
Yeah.
feel
yeah.
I feel like you're judged more based on where you place, especially when it comes to trials and stuff like that. Because I could go 22.5 and make the Olympic team, and I'm on the Olympic team, or I could go 21.8 and get six. Like for those type of scenarios, it's top two that make it. It doesn't matter what time you go; you're there to compete and beat other people. You know, like when I went into Olympic trials, I had an idea of what I would need to go in order to be competitive in that top three, but the overarching goal wasn't to go 21-4. It was to beat this person or beat this person or get a spot in the final. Um, you know, that's just how it is with swimming, at least. So I would say during the season, you're chasing a time a little bit more than when you get to crunch time at meets later down in the season, because at that point you're competing for place. If you're in college, you're competing for points. Um, but yeah, kind of, I think definitely early season to mid season at the absolute latest is where you're like, all right, I'm on track. This is where my time's at now. This is where I need to be to be competitive and to win. But again, the overarching goal is just really to win. You know, there's no time consideration there. Obviously, it's nice to go fast, but a gold medal is better than fast time, in my opinion.
Fair. I was gonna say Gabby probably can chime in on this way better than anyone being a hurdler.
Yeah, especially recently, being that a lot of our races are coming down to literally like the thousandth. That even happened to me at the Olympic trials in 2021. It was like stacked where second place, third place, and fourth place, we ran like it was like 12:51, 12:53, 12:53. And even we saw this year how everyone. It was literally like a blanket finish going across the line. But I feel like throughout the season, the only time you're really chasing a time, I would say, is when it comes to getting like the qualifying standard. Outside of that, I think that the best way to handle it is not to necessarily chase a time. Of course, we all have goals, and of course, everyone, if they could break the road record, would. But at the end of the day, like he said, when we step to the line, it's about how you can perform in relation to getting a medal. If you run 13 seconds and that happens to be a gold medal, like, you want a gold medal at the end of the day. So I feel like a lot of times too, especially in track and field, I don't know if it's like this in swimming, but um, like the viewers and even the athletes can sometimes get caught up a lot in time or trying to like chase time. And that is what can start to make you like drive you crazy throughout the season when you're not hitting it and affect how you're running. And so me personally, I always try like I'll give myself a goal time, but the main thing that I'm always trying to do is produce results, because if you're a person that can go out there and win, then that's the thing that really matters, is being consistent in placing top 3 and winning.
Yeah,
That
I agree. Because I think when I was in school and even like running professionally, the times will come if you have the correct execution. So the goal is to just execute. So the things that you've been working on, as long as you are executing them, the time is usually the result of execution versus, stressing yourself out all year trying to run a certain thing. Like when I first, broke 22.2, I wasn't trying to break 22.2. I was just trying to have a better start than I did at the last meet. And I was trying to have a better, last 50 than I did at another meet. So just the more you chase execution is when the times really come. And so when you guys like when people see, like us celebrating at the end, it's not really because we've been trying to get that start right for, like for 6 years. Like I mean the time was cool. But did you see my start? Like did you
Right.
see me off hurdle 7? Like man, it was killing me.
That's cool.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that too. I feel like even even if it is, like you said, the viewer is wondering how we kind of, in those moments, when it is really tight on the time, how we get through it. It kind of comes back to how you were doing in training. Are you working on those little things and those tedious things to make sure that when it is like a high pressure environment and you know it's going to come down to a lean at the line, that you're able to execute those things you were working on, whether it's a better start, whether it's moving better through the middle of the race, or running all the way through the finish. Those are the things that are going to make it to where, even if it is close like that at the line, you're going to persevere through.
That's cool. Go ahead,
with
David.
with swimming, I feel like the comparisons are also very much the same, especially with sprinting. Is because I mean, in the science of swimming, we broke down every single part of how I think of the race, and perfecting as many parts of those race as possible is my main goal in training. Is trying to make sure that I can perfect all of those different elements. And when you do nail a start, it feels really good, and you're just like, man, that's great. And usually, like when like Kira said, execute. When you execute properly, times will follow, and when you execute properly, results will follow. That's a huge difference. Like when I went back to watch video of my race at trials, was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous. But looking back at a meet like Pan Am's, like that was where I executed more properly and the time followed, as opposed to Olympic trials where that didn't really happen. It's executing is almost as important, or it's probably one of the most important elements that you have when you're racing, whether it be track or swimming.
Mhm.
Hey David, do you wanna do like a little breakdown? We have the 100 meter, I think the 100 meter men's finals. If you want to do a little breakdown for us, because I like watching your guys' events with you, because you say things that I've never heard of before. So I thought maybe we could have David kind of walk us through how he looks at a race like this. So Quincy, if you want
100-meter. Sorry,
to,
which race was it?
I think it's the 100 meter men's finals.
Oh yeah.
And we'll just let it loop so you can kind of go back and talk about it.
So for the 100, it's a little bit different. You got to be aggressive, but you also got to be patient. You can't burn everything you own in the first little bit of the race, or you're cooked basically throughout the rest of it.
How important is the turn there?
It's just as important as the start. Like, you're getting a lot of speed. You need to make sure that you maintain the speed as you come off. You see a lot of people kind of putting themselves under that water a little bit more, but like the one thing that China does well is take it out really aggressive and then maintain that. Because I mean, he's got all that fresh water right now. You can see how far out he is in advance of everyone else. I mean, it's man, 46.4. Holy smokes.
David, talk about. It always seems to me they stay underwater for so long. Why are you guys underwater for as long as you are?
For some people, not necessarily for me, because I'm not a great underwater swimmer, but a lot of people are faster underneath the surface than they are on top. You're experiencing less resistance when you're doing underwater kicks as opposed to you swimming. That's why they had to implement a 15-meter rule, because some people would go basically the entire race underwater and skip the swimming part. On being underwater, it can either be a blessing or it can be a curse. You really have to know how to do it properly in order to kind of execute it. And again, people at this level, what they're going to do is do that properly. And a lot of them, especially like Pan, has a great wall. He flipped a little bit far from that wall, if I saw that correctly. But he's good off that wall. He carries the momentum from the turn out so that he doesn't lose a whole lot of velocity. I think he was at like 1.9 to 1.7 meters per second that entire race, even off of the turn, which if you think about it, you're hitting a dead stop. Like, the wall is a complete, it's solid. Like, you're just going in and out of it, right? Like, it's not moving with you. It's not going to help you get on and off it. You kind of got to do that yourself. And with a proper underwater, proper turn, you can do that. I mean, he's at 2 meters per second. That's blazing. I don't think I've ever been. I mean, I probably have in the 50, but never in the 100. That's insane. But you can see how the second he hits that wall, he's off. Like, he's gone, and he's already back into his lap and maintaining, obviously, a slower velocity considering it's not the first lap of his race. But he's still trying to maintain the best he can to stay out in front of the field.
Hey, David, talk a little bit about. I mean, I thought it was interesting, obvious to I think most people, but interesting to me. This is the fastest you'll be in the race right here, right? This you're saying off of the blocks is the fastest you'll be. Which for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's logical. But for some reason, I'm like, that's weird. It's swimming, but that's the fastest you're going to be. I guess it's simple. There's no resistance, right?
I mean, you're flying through the air. You're using your biggest muscles and your arms to get yourself up and out. Like, you're not interacting with anything, like you said. Like, it's the point where you're going to be the fastest, and the caveat to that is you're impacting something that is going to add immediate resistance to that speed, and it's how you kind of push through that and enter and put yourself in a position to carry that speed. It's the difference between like Pan coming off of that start and whoever's in like lane 7, the difference there, being able to carry that speed up and out. Oh, it's Jack. Jack is extremely fast off the block. He's huge, but he's a big, tall dude. So he's got even more of a challenge getting off that block, maintaining that speed because he is so tall. The taller you get, I'm assuming the harder it is. I'm not tall, so I'm not speaking from experience here, but I can only imagine the factors and the margin of error in that portion of it are going to be so much greater because of the size that you have. I'm a little bit shorter. I'm not a little bit shorter. I'm actually quite short compared to a bunch of the other sprinters. Reinheld's actually kind of my height, but he's a little bit taller, like 6'2", 6'3". Caleb 6'4", Michael Andrews 6'6", Jack Alexi 6'8". Like,
oh wow,
I get away with some things being short, but when I say short, I mean relative to other sprinters. There's a lot more factors in play, and it's a matter of how you manage those factors is what makes you the fastest and best.
So how many times do swimmers breathe in the 100 as opposed to the 50?
Most of them just breathe every stroke. Not every
Oh, okay.
stroke, so it's like every other. So it's a stroke, breath, because you are operating at a lesser. I mean, well, for some people they take it out hard, but most people, including myself, operate at a slightly lesser speed than my 50 freestyle because you got to maintain that for an extra lap. It's a little bit more difficult.
Hmm.
The caveat to that is you're still at an incredibly high speed and incredibly high intensity. You need oxygen to feed your muscles or you will cramp up, and it will be a horrible back half if you don't get the oxygen that you need. So you kind of got to play around. Some people do like every 4, some people do 4-2. I breathe every stroke because I really need that oxygen to operate those muscles and devote myself in a strong finishing position, because a lot of the time what I see with the 100 freestyle is the race is lost usually in the last 25 meters, 25 15 meters. It's because it's the difference of people who can close and people who can't. I mean, you can be ahead, you can be so far ahead and die in the last 15, and somebody who's maintaining the speed that they've had the entire race could pass you up. It can happen that fast depending on how far away they are. So making sure that you have that oxygen is imperative, especially when it comes to finishing the race, because the thing that needs the oxygen the most, I think, is the legs. And once those legs go, it is not smooth sailing. It is a
Tough
horrible
sell.
feeling.
David, what questions do you have for Kyra and Gabby? Let's turn it around to talk a little track and field now.
This is kind of a dumb question, but how do they track y'all's times? Because we have touchpads and you guys are like running and there's a line. Like, is there sensors or something like that, or how does that work?
Some meets have sensors. Usually for like our trials, like Olympic trials, they have sensors that they'll put inside of our bibs, and even like some of our pro circuit races, like Diamond League, they'll kind of put the sensor in front. Honestly, a lot of it is recorded by camera, like at our younger meets. So they'll have like the timing system come out. And I only know this because now like we're working track meets and I have to actually help the timer set stuff up because I didn't really grasp it. So you have some people that say like they'll do hand time. That's really like elementary. But once we get into the actual meets, you'll have that's why we wear bib numbers too, so that when you're able to, the timer will have a computer set up in a tent by the finish line. The gun has the sensor on it. So when the gun is fired, the clock starts.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the clock starts, when you start crossing the finish line, the clock itself will start stopping because the timer can see off the camera who's crossing the line to know what
Gotcha.
exact point you guys all stopped.
A good question for Gabby, specifically with hurdles. Do you find doing hurdles is more difficult than, I don't know what the other version of running, it's called flat running, I don't know, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
conventional running? What do you feel is, I mean, I'm sure you practice hurdles a lot and very
Hmm.
often. Do you feel like it's easier to do the conventional running as opposed to the hurdles?
So actually, in my experience, I started out a sprinter and I just kind of stumbled upon hurdling. I wasn't always good at hurdling. And even now, I would still consider myself a sprinter hurdler, instead of like the other way around. But for me, I would say that hurdles is a little bit more tedious when it comes to like technique because it's so many different variables. Um, but both of them, in my opinion, because hurdles is just like you have to have that flat speed still in order to be able to be a good hurdler. And so I find that it kind of goes back and forth between the two. And in my opinion, like at least for me personally, it's been kind of even because to be a high level sprinter, you have to make sure that you have rigid ankles, you're hitting the ground with a certain amount of force, but also having to be like patient within that and quick at the same time. But then with hurdles, you're like having to do that same thing, except it doesn't have anything to do with like necessarily like stride length. You can just tap, tap, tap instead of having to like completely cover ground. And so I feel like like hurdles can be a little bit more technical at times, but I feel like for high level like sprinters as well, that they realize that there's also a lot of technique that goes into it.
I have one more, and it's specific to the start. Either you can answer it, but we've got a lot of factors that play into our start. You know, how we focus on carrying the velocity through the water, how our hands are entering, where we're going in, the angle of entry, how our feet are entering, how our it's a whole mess of things. But I'm curious what your primary thought process is when you hear that gun go off, and like what are you thinking about when you start your race?
So Gabby's is a
Um,
little different than mine because she has a hurdle in front of her. So I'll let Gabby go first.
that's what I was gonna say. Between my sprint start and my hurdle start, I have two different things that I'm thinking in my head. For hurdles, it's 8 steps for me. For some women and even a lot of the men, they'll take 7 steps. I take 8 steps to the first hurdle. And so for those first 8, I'm just thinking one, that I need to be as quick as possible to get me to the hurdle as fast. You want to kind of try and be the first one over the hurdle. But then also you have to be patient within like the first 3 steps. But pushing off of the block with like everything that you have. So I remember in your science video how you were saying like getting that full extension like through the hip and everything. Ours is kind of similar to that. You want to make sure that you're getting that full like hip thrust off of the block and then getting full extension so that you're kind of covering the ground that you need to. And if you're taking 7 steps, that's even more important because you're taking one less step than everyone else. But it kind of allows you, if you do it correctly, to either be at the hurdle first or with everyone. And then my sprint start, which Kyra can explain this as well, and she might have had different
Ooh.
thoughts than me because she has sprinted way faster than I have. But I'm kind of thinking that I need to push for like 20, 25, 30 meters and trying to like cover as much ground as I can with being patient in the way that I push. And then after that, it's like accelerating out.
I know
No, that's pretty much it.
I'm sure you guys have practiced. I'm not sure. I know you guys practice all the time. When it comes to, because sometimes in swimming you mess up, like you screw up big time, and you miss the angle of entry, you miss the hands, and they go. Pfft. I've seen people at World Championships meets botch their start off of a small, minute fact. Like for you, you said you take like 8 steps. What happens if you take 9, or you're rushing and you get to that hurdle and you're like, wait, I'm at like, what's the game plan? Obviously, that doesn't happen as much because you are a professional athlete. Like you whittle those things out. But if it were to happen, is there a specific game plan that you have that you think about?
Hurdle wise, to be honest, if you mess up the start and you take 9 hurdles or you stutter step, you're out of the race. Like it's most
Wow.
likely not happening. I have seen it where people will stumble out of the blocks or even kind of misstep. They go over the first hurdle, but then they misstep the second hurdle and they've been able to like recover depending on the race that you're in.
Mhm.
Because if it's a race where everyone is running like 12-3 across the line, you're going to be out regardless. So I think for hurdles, especially because there's a barrier there, you have almost no room for error at all.
It's the
And
same.
even on the, I'm about to say on the flat too, you'll have races where somebody will, like Gabby said, like they'll take a step to the side. The biggest difference in hurdling and just running over the flat is we don't have barriers in front of us, but our goals are ultimately the same, is having enough acceleration through 30 meters because we can only hold our top end speed for like 3 seconds. And so it's really making sure that you utilize 0 to 30 to accelerate and continuously get, you're basically going from 0 to 100 in the first like 30 meters, 100% of your velocity. And for us, it's about shin angles and the way that you guys have to, go enter the water at a certain point. The best starts ideally have low heel recovery, which means like you don't see our feet cycling in the back. It's everything is going forward. And ironically, the more that we attack the ground in those first 2 steps, the faster you'll be. So sometimes the misconception is I need to take a really big step. And it's not necessarily you taking a big step. It's you actually taking your hips and moving yourself with your arms and, your limbs and, moving yourself forward and you taking that step down underneath you to propel yourself forward. So it looks cooler when you do it in slow motion. Like when you see it in slow motion, it makes more sense because you think, well, why would I be taking a step up to step down behind me, but you're angled like this coming out the blocks versus like people who come straight up. So the idea is like the best way we explain it, like especially like to younger kids, is like it's an airplane. Coming out of the blocks, you want to be in an airplane motion. The airplane never goes like from here straight into the sky. Like it gradually goes this way, and that's the same way. Like our angles should be in our shins, and even like at practice, it's very repetitive. Every coach has a different way that they kind of teach how to set the blocks, and there's some people who have both knees down, some people have one knee down, some people have their left foot in the front, their right foot in the front. So there's a lot of, specifics that individuals have that are, special to them. Like I've done block starts where both my knees are down and I've had a great start. I've done them with my right foot in the front, my left foot in the front. I know like with hurdling, if you like are 8-stepping and like you have your right leg is the first one to go over the hurdle, your left would be in the blocks. But then there are some athletes who like my left foot's in the front when I hurdle, but when I'm doing stuff on the flat, I have to have my right foot in the front. So there's all these little nuances that similar to swimming. It's just we have a little bit more margin of error, like more room for that.
You know, here we are. We're already coming up on almost 45 minutes into the show.
Has it been? Oh my
It's
gosh.
crazy. It's crazy. And this usually happens around this time where somehow we pop on and off. So I want to work in Quincy. Well, first of all, we need to work in a quick clip of handball so Devin Allen doesn't get mad at us for not talking about handball once again. So Quincy, why don't we bring that up? Look at this goal. This is crazy. This guy he's
Oh wow.
falling, and I think he megs him. I think he actually throws it between his legs.
Yeah, it looks like it.
The
Yeah.
amount of
Yeah.
precision you need for this is crazy.
So Clayton Murphy, Devin Allen are both, pulling together a handball team. So I think Kyra's going to be on it as well.
Man, can I be a referee? Just want to be a ref.
So I think Quincy might be dropping in some fun facts or something about some of the other sports. But what are the other Olympic sports that are kind of not mainstream that you guys are like watching or curious about? We've been watching a lot of surfing in our house.
I've watched, I would say, just about everything. I've turned on equestrian. I've turned on badminton. I've watched rugby, like pretty much everything. And I would say another one that was pretty interesting, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the clip, is of the people that are shooting.
Yes,
doing
that's
like
the one I was going to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I was like, that's the only
I
one
want to
I
get
pretty
one of
much.
the shooters. I want to get one of the shooters on the show. I've already made a reach out to the woman who scored the winning. I don't know. They don't call it a touchdown, do they? In rugby, what do they call it? I made a reach out to her. Funny enough, on her TikTok, I think it's her aunt was like, we put a video up of that play that's doing really well on TikTok, and her aunt commented on it and said, "Hey, this is my niece." So I'm like, "Hey, make a reach out." She's like, "I already did. I'm trying to get her on the show." So Quincy says it's a try instead of okay, all right. But why is it called a try? They've done it.
They tried.
They tried and succeeded. I don't know.
tried
It should be called a did or a done.
And then
A
if
done
they
is
miss it,
crazy.
could it be called a tried? Or
Exactly. So Gabby, are you watching like 4 screens? Are you doing it like we were doing it? Like you got the 4 screens going, the peacock?
I did attempt to do that at first, but then it was just a lot going on. And I wanted to give everyone their specific time. So I've been actually, if I miss something, I'll just like go back and watch it. But when I tell you from the time I wake up to probably the time I go to bed, I've been watching like some type of Olympic sport because all of them are pretty interesting in how everyone prepares like for such a big moment in their life and taking the preparation that they just take for that and seeing them all like carry it out and win medals and even just qualify for the Olympics, I think is very cool to see.
It totally is. So that's pretty funny. So it used to mean they had an opportunity to kick at a goal, so it meant try at a goal. Okay.
I gotta try.
Now we learned something. David, what are you watching that's kind of not the mainstream?
I've been a secret fan of rowing. I used to live probably half an hour away from the United States Olympic team, like training center. They used to use the Princeton River as one of their training centers. So Team USA, whenever I'd be over at Princeton University for practice or something, or a meet or something like that, you'd see the boats. And I made a couple friends with rowers at Pan. I don't know if it was at Pan Am's. It might have been another meet, but I find it very interesting. It's an extremely physically demanding sport. I could never do it, but it's always fun to watch. So yeah, I've been watching that, and then also the shooting has been pretty cool. More mainstream than I've ever seen it in my entire life, and then a little bit of basketball because who can't enjoy seeing a bunch of NBA players battling it out against other countries, because people are calling it like the dream team and stuff, and I find that interesting.
Yeah, we were Kyra, what do you got going? What's your new sport?
Honestly, I've been trying to reserve my sleep schedule because track is starting soon. So,
It's also very valid.
so I've been catching swimming, obviously, but for me, beach volleyball is like my thing. I can't play beach volleyball to save my life, but I just admire the ankle strength and just being able to like keep it going. Like I really think beach volleyball. And then I did watch rugby, and I thought that was pretty bad ASS. I did. I'm not gonna lie.
My thing with beach volleyball is kind of like your thing, Kyra, with swimming. All that sand, I'm sweating like crazy, and I'm rolling around in the sand constantly. It would drive me nuts.
Exactly. And it's like so interesting because like volleyball in itself is like I've watched volleyball. We probably all have seen like a volleyball game, but like it's beach volleyball adds an extra layer, like the sand, the intense, and it's just like all of and where they have it at, where you can like see the Eiffel Tower in the background. I think it's just
Yeah.
like they probably have like the best spot. Like the purple track is cool. Don't get me wrong. Nobody shoot me down. But being able to like play in front of the Eiffel Tower, like all the pictures you're gonna get in the video is gonna just be like amazing.
That is cool. Quincy's dropping a lot of good facts here. Volleyball players.
300 jumps.
Wow.
Oh wow.
The stamina you have to have for that,
insane.
The mental stamina you gotta have too, man.
Because you're not swapping each other, like you're not like tagging each other out, like it's like you're playing the game.
Yeah.
In those points and matches, they go so
For long
long.
stats. Yeah, they're gonna say that they've got a long game. Same with tennis. Like the mental stamina you gotta have to play tennis is insane. One of my old friends was a big tennis player, and actually my lifting coach at TAC was a tennis player at the University of Louisville. And just the physical and mental stamina you have to endure like what can end up being like a 2.5 hour straight game. It's just wild.
That is wild. Yeah, it's like Sean's saying here, a lot of plyos.
It's more than a lot of plyos.
So guys, coming up in the next few days, so I've already recorded Heath Baldwin, Michigan State. Had to get a little chat with him. So I pre-recorded something yesterday with him. I did Bryce Hoppel, had a great chat with him. Shari Hawkins. I'm almost thinking that we do a whole episode with her because it was like fascinating. I almost want to bring you guys on and like we cut it up into like 3 segments. Let her go. We comment on it. It was really, really, really insightful. And at some point, I'm just going to upload the whole interview. We were supposed to do 15 minutes. We did 45 minutes. It was crazy.
I love her TikToks.
Yeah. I mean, she's entertaining to watch too and informative, by the way. Some of her videos are really cool. And then tomorrow I have an interview with Mackenzie Long. So that's going to be fun.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So we'll bring that into one of the episodes coming up before she competes. And then I think Donald Scott as well. I got him tomorrow. So pre-recording all these folks, maybe Peyton Otterdahl tomorrow as well. And so we're going to try to clip those up a little bit, bring them into the episodes, but then have all these athletes on after they compete and can relax a little bit. But yeah, we have a lot of really great shows coming. So we had technical problems with Yule Moldauer yesterday with Clayton Murphy, right? And so then we're bringing him back. So he's coming back tomorrow. So
oh, cool.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Before we get out of here though, we got about 9 minutes left. Kyra, I think maybe you lead us off on our either what were you thinking or what it takes to be the greatest, and you pick who you want to ask, and then I'll take the other athlete.
Okay, I'm gonna ask David, what do you think it takes to be the greatest?
I think it's a beautiful chemistry of a bunch of different things. You got to have a purpose. Purpose kind of gives you determination, and that's a huge factor. You have to have something that you're working for. You have to have a reason to do stuff, and somebody that has a purpose has determination, and that's a huge factor of it because only you can really dictate how determined you are. The other one is work ethic. Like, you can't really be the greatest at anything. This is legitimately anything in life if you don't actually work for it. And so if you have a job and you want a promotion, if you don't work for it, you're not going to get it. If you're slacking off in practice or something and you want to be the greatest, but like you really got to have a really strong and kind of temptation. You got to stick away from the temptations and have a strong work ethic to be the best. And you also just kind of got to be down to earth and kind of in your own space and very analytical. Because the one thing that I've known, I'm extremely to the point where it's actually negative sometimes, over analytical of myself and what I do. I've seen a lot of the greatest athletes. They also very self-critical. They're also very in tune with their body and their mind. And you really got to have a connection between your body and your mind to be the greatest as well, to kind of know where you're at, where your body's at, where your mind's at, to kind of dictate how you progress and how you go about things.
That is
Yeah,
cool.
I can totally agree. I could totally agree.
Very cool insight. I mean, I love when we ask this question because you guys all have slightly different insights, and to me, it's like this collective knowledge that we're accumulating from all of you guys is
It's like the
pretty
1%.
cool.
Like those are
Yeah.
it's the attributes of like the 1%, which makes you the greatest.
Gabby, I want to go back in time a little bit and ask you a what were you thinking question, and we don't have to get into the weeds of kind of the how, but I
Yeah.
do want to go back to the what were you thinking when you made the Olympic, the Tokyo Olympic team? Because I think actually you and I talked in between the time period there.
The weight.
Yeah.
The weight,
And
yeah.
I remember, yeah. So I'm curious. I think about that every now and again, actually, to go, that had to be wild.
Mhm.
And the lowest of lows, maybe, and the highest of highs, all in the span of a short time. So what were you thinking?
Yes. I would definitely say that describes it really well. I walked off the track bawling, crying because I placed fourth and I literally was the one place out. It's like you put everything into it. I had PB'd every round. I literally gave it my all, and I wasn't sure if I had came up short or not. So it was kind of difficult in knowing how to feel in that moment. And then the following days, I would say I kind of like came out of it because I was pretty positive in kind of thinking that it was a possibility that I was going to make the team. I just had to wait for the confirmation. And then when I got the confirmation, it was like a sigh of relief because I
Oh man.
was an Olympian. And so I would even say, though, even between those moments, leading up to that and after that, it was still a very like odd time because, of course, we have social media. And for a second, I honestly had to get off of it because people were just commenting so many different things. And for me, it's like I have this very high moment in my life with such negativity, like surrounding it, of people like in my comments and just saying crazy stuff. And so it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I love about getting to know you guys, there are so many, like, you guys are so driven. You're the elite of the elite in athletics, but there's something about at least the athletes that we're talking to that are so humble and you guys are so nice to be around, and you're so welcoming to what we do, and we come in and work with you guys. And you know, our tagline for our company is "World's Greatest from Super to Human," and I do think we chatted about a little the other day, this idea of the human side, because it's the athletic feats are what we're seeing in the Olympics, right? But there's all the work, there's all the heartache, there's all the overcoming obstacles. You pretty much are guaranteed you're not feeling 100% at this point, right? And you guys still do it and entertain us all. I just think it's like people need to understand your stories, right? And get to know you guys as people, because it's kind of amazing. So I think that world's greatest part works on and off the field of play.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I appreciate about you guys is that you kind of like to incorporate all aspects of the story, and not just the performance part, but even behind the scenes and getting to know the athlete. And so I appreciate that.
Thanks. I appreciate that too. I want to do one quick speed round. Give me one prediction, you guys, of maybe it's someone, maybe it's one sport, maybe it's a world record that's going to fall. Who wants to start first? One prediction that's going to come up.
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Okay, I'm gonna go crazy. This is my wild prediction. Fred Curley's gonna win Olympic gold medal.
Oh, I already made that prediction 3 days ago, but me and you, now Fred has two.
There you go.
Oh, I mean, what do you guys think of that, Gabby?
I'm
I-
not I'm not opposed to the idea. I would say that. Yeah. I have like a few different 100 predictions in my head, and I'm always very iffy about saying for certain who I think is gonna win. But
Oh, I know. That's why this is a wild prediction. Like
right.
I'm
Yeah,
like I have like a lot of different scenarios that I have, but my strongest one right now in like the present moment, and okay, a little biased. Fred is my friend, but you know, Fred, Olympic gold. He's
Mhm.
already gotten the silver, previous world champion. Him, Noah. Like it's always going to be like a lot of fire behind that whole thing, and especially with the
Yeah,
sprint series coming out. Like I just think the Olympics is not the Olympics if something crazy doesn't happen. So
that's true.
mhm.
That's
Yeah.
true.
that. I tried to get Kenny on the show, by the way, but
man,
his team is like, I'm like, I just wanted him to come on for like 2 minutes to kind of stir it up right at the end, just a little.
no, Kenny will probably get on after he gets his medal. When he gets his medal, Kenny will get on.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what they promised me. So Gabby, what's your prediction? Let's go. You can couch it.
I can couch it. What is my prediction?
It could be in equestrian. It doesn't have to be in track.
There's a 59-year-old man doing equestrian, which is crazy to me.
Is that the
like,
oldest athlete in the Olympics?
Yeah, the oldest athlete in the Olympics. It's crazy seeing like the oldest and then seeing the youngest. Trying to think of a crazy prediction. Because I don't want to say anything. So many like crazy world records can go down the track that like you're like, oh, like Ryan Krauser might break a world record or Sydney or somebody like that. That I feel like it's like that's not crazy. That's just like normal.
Yeah.
I let's see. I'm going to go out and say that Mackenzie Long is going to medal in the 200.
That's
like
a fair
that one.
one. I'm not mad at that one.
I'm not right.
I'm
That's
not
just
mad
why
at that one.
she's the one of the athletes that I really targeted. Where I'm like, I want to get her before she races. And last night I'm staying up late so I can catch people in the morning there.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
like 2:30 here, 3:00.
yeah.
That's when I'm doing my best work. David,
Mhm.
what do you have? What's your prediction?
See, I'm not great with predictions because I don't think of predictions very often. But uh, I'm trying to think. Let me think, because what I was thinking was the 200 IM. I really think Carson has a shot at winning the 2 IM. I really think that he'll have a shot in going out and getting it. And the world record's like a 154, I think, like 154 flat. So I think someone in some capacity is going to break that world record.
That's pretty cool.
Be tuned in.
I like these 3 predictions. You know, one thing that I'm learning, and I think I want to make this like some sort of like series of some sort. So one thing I'm learning is the people who are living with each other, and you guys know this being the athlete, like people are that rooming together and living with each other in the village. So one group that's interesting. So Trevor Bassett is with Grant and Quincy Wilson.
Oh wow.
I can see Grant. Quincy is just, that's kind of like cute.
It is, right? This is like
Mhm.
that to me is like there's like a whole other dynamic. So I kind of want to do a show where we bring all 3 roomies together. Right? Wouldn't that be kind of fun to
Yeah, because I
go?
know
Yeah.
like for the women, I know like Parker, Valby, Anna, Jasmine, um, Grace, like
They're
they're all
having
in the
fun.
same.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, I'm
they're
just
like
watching everybody's TikToks.
that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They're like redesigning their room, asking everyone for help and everything.
Mhm.
But I saw Talia and
Shamir.
Shamir. They seem to have a tiny room from what I could tell in that one photo that Talia was.
I think Katora is in their like apartment or their suite thing too.
Oh really? Oh, see,
Mhm.
the roommate series is actually a good one. This is kind of interesting, unless someone was annoying someone else. Then it's not,
And it's awkward.
then it's, so we're kind of up against it. So Kyra, do you wanna kind of give a shot at the Devin Allen? We always have David. We have terrible endings to this show.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say it's so much pressure. Devin put a lot of pressure on me last time. So basically, guys, according to Devin, we do no free shout outs, but you guys get to shout someone out before we get off the show, and then we usually end it awkwardly with just a little peace sign saying bye. That's my favorite too, unless you guys have other ideas of saying bye. So you can go ahead and shout somebody out, and then we'll hit this.
Kyra, you have to go through and give the shout outs to all the world's greatest handles on all the platforms.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna do that at the end. I was practicing that.
Well, my coach is about to have a kid, so I hope that it goes well in the very near future. But I am excited for him, and I hope it goes well.
That's a good shout out.
That's a good one.
I want to give 2 shout outs. One is to my coach. I am back training with Alan Johnson, so I'm excited to see what we have in store for next year. And then also just shout out to my family and my support system because they have really been getting me through the past few years.
That's
Cool.
awesome. Is that breaking news, Gabby?
Is it? No.
Is it?
Maybe.
I didn't know about that. That was interesting.
Yes, breaking news.
You heard it here first on the world's greatest live stream show.
We're clipping that out, Gabby. That's going on YouTube Shorts like in 25 minutes.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to World's Greatest. Been working with you guys for as long as I can really remember, doing a whole bunch of different series. I don't even know where we began. But, Bob, thank you so much for having us on the show. You guys can tune in every day during the Olympics, 7 p.m. Eastern. The links are down below. Follow us on Instagram, World's Greatest Team on Instagram, World's Greatest. Take all the vowels out on Twitter. And the TikTok is World's Greatest as well.
2024.
2024. There we go. I was waiting for it to pop up at the bottom. So when in doubt, guys, it's all at the bottom. You can catch these. Oh, and also follow the YouTube World's Greatest.
I do want to give one shout out. We're working with Curiosity Stream. 2 shout out. Curiosity Stream. You can go see all the Science of Movement shows on Curiosity Stream. It's like $2.99 for a month or something. They have all these documentaries, including that one of ours. And then VIZIO. We're kind of working on this VIZIO distribution deal. Pretty much all of our content is with VIZIO now, but this show is actually doing really well. So we're trying to do kind of a little barter deal with them so they can promote this show and our other shows within their, I think it's called World of Sports. So if you have a VIZIO TV, you can search for world's greatest, but it's going to be sitting in, I think they're calling it World of Sports. So that's kind of going down. It was going down today, tomorrow. But the more views we get here, the more engagement we get here, the more promotion that these guys are going to give us. So that's all good.
Hey, the more the merrier.
There we go.
All right. So we're signing out. Peace out. See you guys.
Peace.
See ya.